Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours, and I am hosting you today, and you should be happy about that. No, if you're just listening to the last show, I'm just trying to mix it up. I'm trying to start the show new. No, we're grateful that you're here. We're always grateful you take time to listen with us, and we just sit around and share our hearts of what God's doing in our life, and it's such a joy to be able to come in and do that we just hope you feel some of that joy and that God moves you to a place where you're closer to Him. That's the only thing we ask, is that we pray constantly that people are being moved closer to their Father. And so that's what we hope for you today as we talk about our vision, continue to talk about our vision of God's greatest hits at this moment in our life, right? Because it's different all over different times of your life.
You just said it.
I did. I have the clip for this show, and this is from the movie Soul Surfer. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a true based on a true story of Bethany Hamilton, who is a Christian surfer. She was on the pro circuit, and she got her arm bit off by a shark, right? And then for a long time she didn't surf. She was afraid to go in the water, all these things you would expect. And then God gets a hold of her and changes some of that. And so when she refers to something in this clip, something being missing, she's talking about her arm. You obviously can't see what's going on. But what's happened in her life is she's poured herself into trying to do some work for God's people. And so her and her mom go to Thailand. Sorry. All of a sudden I got the wrong place. Thailand, after the tsunami, and they're sitting around at a beach, and they've been feeding people and things like that. But it's a beautiful day, and the waves are nice, and they're small, and all these kids are looking at the water terrified. And so that's where she comes in, and she starts talking with one little kid, and what you miss in the middle is all visual, so I couldn't really leave it in the clip, is her convincing him to come out into the water just by her having joy of being in the water, and how it changes not only everyone around her, but her. And so we're going to listen to that.
How come no one's in the water? We brought all these boards. Still petrified. Is it safe? Yeah. Oh, something's missing, yeah?
They said he wandered up a few days after the tsunami.
What's his name?
They don't know. He hasn't said a word. He won't even smile.
Hey, do you want to go to the water? You want to go out to the ocean and go swimming? No. Hey, can I borrow your board? Yeah. Thank you.
They say the Lord works in mysterious ways. I say that's an understatement. Who would have thought that teaching a kid to surf would teach me that surfing isn't the most important thing in the world, and that something else is? Love. Bigger than any tidal wave. More powerful than any fear.
I really like what she had to say there at the end. I wasn't sure what story I wanted to share on this. I should say that the thing I'm most grateful for right now is my wife. We just got married not long ago, and I am grateful for that. But above all that, it wouldn't have been possible without God's healing in my life. Mm-hmm. Right. And when her and I first started dating, I was a pretty broken guy. Had been hurt by others, felt like the world, I had nothing to offer the world that was good. There was a lot of brokenness in me in relationships. God had already done a lot of healing in other areas for me, but in that area, I kind of just held to myself. Right. And when I wrap it up, what it really was fear. It was fear of getting hurt again. I wasn't going to let anyone close enough to hurt me. Right. And as I started to ask God, why is it that I really like to watch those romantic comedies when people fall in love? I mean, I know that's a chick flick, but why does that speak to my heart in ways I can't describe it? He'd say, well, I have that for you. That's what you really want. And so I had to start asking him some questions because I did want that. And over the next few years, God really worked on peeling back layer after layer of things that I was just fearful for, right? And I am so grateful for my marriage. I'm so grateful for my wife and the relationship that we have already, and we're starting to have even more so. But it would not have been the same if God had not done that healing. And so when I look at every relationship in my life, it goes back to God's healing, right? Because I am a different dad than I was years ago. Part of that's just getting older, and I call people Papa when I'm a grandpa, that kind of thing, calling back to the last show. But
I wasn't going to say anything when you said Taiwan.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Yeah, I must have the memory issues. But no, it's just all those things come back that I'm such a better person, but it all comes back to God's healing in my life. It's because he had healed me of things that were at the time bigger than that, had a longer hold on me for a longer time, that gave me the confidence and the belief to step out in faith and say, God, I know I don't really want to risk again, but I got to trust that you have something for me that I have no way to fathom. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, that's my story.
Well, I'm sorry, that idea is in 1 John. Perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. And that verse became gigantic in my life, absolutely huge, because I lived most of my life in tremendous fear of being around almost anybody. But, just one of the examples when I first became aware of the verse was, and you may have heard me tell this story before, I was afraid of the dark, terrified, like, crying and like, Tammy, you need to get up and listen to that noise, kind of terrified of the dark. And so she went to Pennsylvania to visit some friends one weekend, and I was staying in this creepy house over by the university in Winston-Salem. Thunder, lightning, everything. It's like psychos, in my bedroom. Mm. And I am, almost to the point of screaming in my bed. I can't think about sleeping and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, something comes over me that says, this is sin. And I'm like, okay, so this is sin on top of everything else. I'm terrified. And I'm full of sin. Okay, I'm scared. I get it. It's horrible. And so I start to just, okay, God, somehow I'm told I'm supposed to give this to you. I have no clue what that means, how in the world what's the transaction, but here you go. And about that time, I hear that still small voice. It says, Robbie, what are you so afraid of? And I said, have you not seen Straight Jacket? Have you not seen those movies? Like the person with a knife, like, rah! And I am like telling God, it's something to be afraid of. And he says to me these words that will forever change everything, is, Robbie, what would be so bad about that? And I went, oh, threatening me with heaven, eh? Like, oh. And the miraculous part of that particular little moment of love was it wasn't like all of a sudden I became totally healed from that. However, it began the journey that over the next several years, I got to the part where I'm not even in the least bit afraid of the dark, but almost more importantly, within a year of that event, I was diagnosed with what they said was killer cell lymphoma, and it looked like I was being threatened with heaven. And because of the incidents with the fear of the dark, I had some context for why I shouldn't be in a state of terror. And the love that didn't have to do with punishment, like, wait a minute, he loves me, and no matter what happens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were sanctified in your fear of the dark?
Hey, Jesus healed the blind in different ways.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, we were talking about sanctification in the break, right? And it was a really, really good conversation. And Sam, being the hostess with the mostest, is saying, "Hey guys, we should be talking about this on the show." And so, I mean, the idea is, God started where you were, which Danny talked about during the break. Of you forget that God loves you where you're at. And we read about sanctification, or we hear sermons about sanctification, and we think, oh, I just need to be sanctified. I just need to be more sanctified. Well, how does that happen exactly? Well,
it's a process. And as I was saying, that, I am this far from, I could not be like farther from the east to the west from the point of sanctification. And by the time I die, I might have moved an eighth of an inch. But if I hadn't moved that 1/32nd, then I was still robbing everybody of the difference that would make in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Danny?
Well, yeah, and that's what we were talking about when we were notified we should be on the air with it, is that, I think most of us, I know in my case, I knew God had saved me, but the messages I was hearing, because my receptors were broke, for the most part, was that I needed to be in a certain condition before God would have anything to do with me. And all of a sudden, I have to, when mercy breaks through and you realize that, wait a minute, God is with me. Yeah, he loves me where I'm at, Darren, but he's also there where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to walk with me every step, every inch of the way, or every eighth of an inch, however far I go, with me. And he loves me in spite of me. And that's what's so awesome about, you guys made me think of a story when, 32 years ago, I was coming out of addiction. I sat in a chair and there was a psychiatrist sitting across the desk. And I won't ever forget it, because after going through some of the stuff I had done, chemicals and that thing, he was looking at me like I needed one of those jackets that you hug yourself with. And that's what I felt like I was going to end up. But my thought there was, man, you can't help me. You don't know anything about me or where I'm at. Because I suffered from something I've learned to call terminal uniqueness. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen.
Mm. Well, terminal, very uniqueness.
Very uniqueness.
Yes. Yeah.
But what I've learned in that, in God's mercy and his greatest hits, to kind of pound on the topic a little bit, is God put people in my life that knew exactly where I was at because they had been there. Mm-hmm. And he took that excuse away from me. And that little bit of sanctification of letting me know, hey, I love you enough to put people in your way to keep you from falling all over yourself.
Which kind of goes back to the point of your story before the show, Sam.
Yeah.
Do you remember that far back?
I do. Okay. It's right before you said something about the Eagles had a bunch of greatest hits, and Robbie just said something. I don't know what it
was. Yeah. Most people forget what Robbie has to say very quickly.
Was that tonight?
It was tonight, I think.
Yeah, it was.
May have been last week. No, I was talking about my first boot camp when I had to do I chose to do the talk on the wound. It scared me to talk about it because I was going to talk about publicly for the first time something I had swore that no one would ever know about. And it was when I was molested as a kid from a family member. And, I'd lived with that and tried to, it was so far deep buried, I actually kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
Till God brought it up. And then I was mad. God brought it up. And then, no, God, that can't be it. But no, he took me through healing on that. And then he prompted me to share it. And I was really scared because I was afraid of what other people would think of me and how they would see me. And I did that talk the first time, and it was hard. It was very hard to get through. God gave me some strength. We got through it. But after that particular talk at that particular camp, at Camp Caraway at the time, quite a few people came up to me and shared and said, that's a part of my story. And thank you for sharing that, because that gives me hope.
Yeah.
And that's what I just look at and say, God, thank you so much, because that healing, you chose to let that impact others, right? That's something that was such a horrible thing in my life. It no longer holds me in any way right now. It doesn't. I've given it all to God. And there's power in that, but then there's also an opportunity to share with people saying you can have that too. God's got that in store for you.
Well, and it's one of the reasons we're on the mics, honestly. Right. I mean, Robbie does a great job of just confessing total life, right, out there. To sometimes we're in the studio going, where's he taking us next? But as we've all done that, right, at boot camps, talking to churches, talking to one-on-one with guys over, coffee, the power is less and less and less of that old hold. That's sanctification. Right. Yep. That is the process of sanctifying not just my sin, but sanctifying my woundedness, sanctifying, Jesus didn't come just to take care of your sin. He came to take on the same stripes that you have, the same wounds that you have, to put your heart back together. And you talked about the fact that not as many people have come up to you and talked to you about that after that time, and that you were amazed that it was that time, because you probably thought, man, I did a horrible job of delivering that talk or whatever. But no, it was the strength in the vulnerability and letting God do what God wanted to do through you that day that made a huge difference. But the reason we can do this on the air and talk about our sin, I was molested as a child, just like you were. Yeah, me too. And Danny as well. And we are the land of misfit toys. I mean, literally, if you want to look at a group of guys and go, man, if that group of knuckleheads could pull something off that would bless people, anybody could. Oh, yeah. Because we are definitely on the island of, misfit toys, but God is using that island to reach other people.
But again, as I was saying before we went to the second show, that the ministry, Dangerous Heart / Masculine Journey / Good Heart Ministries,
whatever it is,
and Wild at Heart, all those, kind of this combined thing, has been an opportunity to see healing in action. And when I saw Sam get healing, or I saw Darren get healing, or I've seen Danny get healing, it gives me hope. I don't have to be stuck in this addiction to pornography, or I don't have to be stuck, because believe me, I would have told anybody, there's no way you can beat that. That's impossible. Or other fears or dreads. But even lately, like today, like this morning, I was discovering new ways to actually become more wholehearted through integration of different aspects of really cool stuff. Like, Jesus was a many-faceted diamond, right? He was the way. He was the truth. He is the life. He is all these things. But all those are, in their own way, a very unique color, a very unique shape. And I have that too. Mm-hmm. And if those were integrated the way they should be, they would all be walking with Jesus. But since some of my pieces don't choose to want to hang out with him, because they're too busy protecting me from death, from their perspective. They're trying to keep Robbie from being dead. Well, they haven't figured out yet that they've been saved. And that's different than a wound. Mm-hmm. That's different than healing a wound, or that's different than understanding the larger story, or that's different than finding your place in the story and some of the other information. In other words, the beauty of this is as other people, Morgan and John and you guys, as they provide me hope with, and there's more. Yeah. There's so much more.
Yeah, it's amazing. People could ask us, why do you keep doing these boot camps? I mean, you've been to how many of them? God shows up at every one of them in a different way, and he has a different nugget. Even if we do the same exact talks that we've done and all that, when we prepare, it's something new for us. Mm-hmm. There's hidden manna God's got for us, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's just a constant connection with him that, we hope that people get stuff out of the boot camp, but we know we do, because he does it when we're preparing for it. And we hear from we ask 2 questions when people leave boot camp: how can we pray for you, and how did God come after you?
Mm-hmm.
And to hear the way God showed up for the men is always just so amazing, to see him at work on things we had no idea about.
It's the greatest hit.
It is the greatest hit.
Such as Bobby said, want to pass on the joy, not the sorrow.
Robbie, you were talking about being scared of the dark. Every pastor I've ever known was scared of the dark. They were so scared of it that they refused to tell anybody about the darkness that existed. Not just out there somewhere,
I know what you're saying,
but the darkness that existed inside of themselves. And when I was a pastor, I couldn't tell people that somehow or another I had started getting haunted by this old wound of being sexually molested and all the other sins that I had committed, trying to react to that, if you will, and to heal that in a very non-sanctifying way. I was always living in fear of, and the entire time that I lived in that fear, the deeper the addiction to pornography or anger or posing or any of those things, the deeper it becomes. Because you can't let people see you. And it's sad. It's very sad. I get it. Your livelihood. Well, I make $50,000 a year and it pays my insurance, and my wife, she's going to divorce me, and, 1,000 different things, right? All of that is fear of the darkness, every bit of it. And we have learned that you can overcome that darkness, and that the world does not give up on you. But more than that, that God has called us as a group of men to create a place, a fellowship, if you will, where others who are struggling with that sort of thing can reach out to us. And I know all of us have had other, not just pastors, but, different people, but often pastors, for me personally, would be willing to confess that to me, because they knew they heard enough of my story, heard enough of my heart to know I was not going to throw them to the wolves, that I wasn't going to, run out and now, am I going to try to hold them accountable? Yes. Am I going to try to get them help? Yes. Am I going to tell them, if you're not willing, you need to step away? Yes. I mean, all of those things. But while we live in the darkness there and hide it, the more you hide it, the more power it has. The more you expose it, the less power it has.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You guys were talking about, our group, and I think, and I mean this lovingly.
We hate it when he says that.
Well, I could say it the other way towards me as well, but no, I do mean it lovingly, that when I see God do something in your life, and I know how much of a screw up you are, it gives me hope that even I can be helped. Because we do start to know each other's stories. We do spend a lot of time together. We know some of our hot buttons and all those kinds of things, right? We just know each other well, and that gives you the ability to say, okay, God, I see you actively working in that person's life, and I got to believe that you want to work in mine just as bad.
I was thinking as Robbie and Darren were talking, I can't remember which each one of them said, because you, but the writer of Hebrews, and I've always found this fascinating, he says, laying aside the sin and the weight that so easily besets us. So everything that weights me down is not sin. There are things that people have done. There are things that I carry. And part of that sanctification process, I think, Darren, you may correct me later, off air hopefully, that there are weights that I carry that have to be set down in order for me to climb on up the hill. That maybe it's not a sin, maybe it's not something that I purposely dove into, but it's there, and I may not even be aware of it being there. And then all of a sudden, God says, hey, let's talk about this. And most of the time I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about that. But, or why are we talking about this? This doesn't make any sense to me. But going back to, the first show and that kind of thing,
And I think that it speaks to what you both are saying, all three of you, that this is such a safe, it's not easy to lay that stuff down if it's not a safe place.
No.
And so when you're around a bunch of people who are open with their brokenness and to be knuckleheads, right? And unfortunately, I feel like I've aired horribly dirty behavior, anger, frustration, things like that.
Yeah, we don't just know about each other's sin. We've experienced each other's sin. That's what you're trying to say.
That's what I'm saying. And I'm talking about, I know you guys will see when I just lost my cool over something completely stupid. Or you can see me in my worst point of frustration and stuff and still smile at me, just kind of look at me like, man, it's okay.
Yeah.
And you still love me. And I don't get any sense of anything but mercy and love and those kind of things.
And then eventually we give you grief about it.
Well, after the healings, kind of had room to take hold.
Grief, we call it love. But
we talked a little bit about it at dinner. But Danny, what you guys were saying is so correct. We see the weight of our own sin sometimes, but we carry the weight of other people's sins against us. Right, because it came with a message, right? And that's what God goes after in those times, is to get that message and break it away and get to the truth underneath. Go to masculinejourney.org. We'll talk to you next week.